Bigbottom's production.
Neville didn't have a problem getting out of bed in the morning. He enjoyed living, only sometimes his life would be easier if other people enjoyed him living too. Rolling off his stomach and searching for the floor with his feet, he began the morning ritual of not ripping his pants.
Jesus fuck! Close the curtain, Bigbottom!
The curtain was closed, but in grabbing his trunk from under the bed, his buttocks wafted between the seams and bid his roommate a good morning. Sleeping naked was another lifestyle choice imposed on him by his absolute troll dungeon of an ass. Once, some boys attempted to prank him as he slept by putting soap bars in socks and beating him. Neville only slept on his stomach because otherwise his spine would be at too obtuse of an angle. The first sock hit squarely in his muggle maker, reflecting the sock back into the teeth of the attacker. Fully dressed, and having avoided knocking his lamp off the nightstand, Neville locked eyes with the poster of Beyoncé and felt some reassurance for the day ahead.
We can do this.
He thought. He wished his ass didn't dictate his life, or at least contributed more. Being his guardian the night was a rare benefit and accidental. Beyoncé had his same affliction, but turned it into an asset and gave him hope. Neville hummed Cranes in the Sky as he delicately arranged his full English breakfast. He was afforded a lot of real estate in the cafeteria due to the size of his backyard and his lack of friends. The owls came and delivered the morning mail. There was some commotion over a package Harry received. YouTube had sent him the Gold Creator Award for reaching 1 million subscribers after his Chamber of Secrets revealed video went hella viral. Neville received a water bill from Hogwarts for $249.
Fucking Dumbledore can munch my man muff,
Mumbled Neville as he shoved and situated the bill deep in his ass crack.
Beyoncé, my Rock of Gibraltar, please release a fire distract to utterly destroy Harry Potter and his friends.
First period herbology was the tactical choice for Neville. The fresh smells of morning dirt and plants almost covered up his farts. Invariable, unlike all other forms of wind, first period was pre-bowel movement in Neville's schedule, and a near constant zephyr of heavily enriched stench filtered throughout the greenhouse. The big professor lady was droning on about the proper way to pluck a baby mandrake, and Neville was not paying attention. He had noticed a roly-poly was meandering about in his potted plant.
Good bug, baby bug,
Whispered Neville to his new friend as he allowed it to crawl up his hand.
I wish to be like you. When things go wrong, I could just roll up into a ball until they go away. Eat leaves and beans and just enjoy the sun.
But Neville was becoming envious of the roly-poly's completely uniform body.
Life must be nice for a smooth body. Come on, let's see the ball.
Neville poked the bug as it rolled into a ball and fell to the ground behind him. Neville turned and bent down to retrieve his friend too quickly and released a sinister chemical provocation onto his plant and the table which the class was gathered around. Out of startled nerves, he quickly ate the roly-poly and didn't think much of it.
Neville, my boy, why?
Queried the big professor lady, clutching her nose.
Those mandrakes sure are stinky beasts.
Was Neville's best attempt to divert blame from himself.
Mandrakes only smell when fully matured and starting to seed, Neville,
Said Hermione, trying her best not to open her mouth.
Oh, pretty sure this one is rotten, nerd.
Bigbottom ripped the baby mandrake from the dirt. The class reflexively moved to cover their ears as Neville took a big sniff of the mangled plant.
Phew, yeah, proper silver stench coming off this one.
Realizing the mandrake was silent and unmoving, the class stared at Neville in amazement.
My God, you killed it,
Said the big professor lady. Neville was forcibly excused to use the restroom. He was relieved by this, as he very much needed to relieve himself, and could use a shower. His favorite bathroom was on the other side of the castle, and so he broke into a quick, uncoordinated waddle. His legs remained stiff at the hips, as he sort of tossed himself side to side. The rhythm between his left and right steps was kept uneven and varied in stride length. Otherwise, his bouncing ass could hit a resonant frequency and propel him straight into the air. Little toots escaped on the longer strides, and the concentration required to keep his load contorted his face. As his face mirrored his feelings, Neville recalled farting in a manure-filled room onto the big professor lady, killing a plant, and being excused to poop like a dog no one wanted to walk. Hot tears pooled in his eyes, and his pace quickened.
Fucking nerds gave me a rotting mandrake.
Neville said through grit teeth. He was actively wincing, and the hallway was turning red.
How can you smell anything if you're pinching your nose, fucking nerd, Hermione?
Neville's ass hit its rhythm and sprung upwards. His right leg did not make up the distance, and he tumbled down, his ass wrapped around his hips to kiss the floor, and then clapped back with the sound of a dumpster lid being closed. From the floor, Neville turned his head and gazed out on the stone bridgeway to the blue sky and dancing cirrus clouds. As the echoes of his ass clap faded away, he noticed a brilliantly colored red bird in the distance carrying something large. Maybe a log, maybe a professor. Faintly, Neville heard a wheezy crackling coming from the bird. Dumbledore was on his way back from helping Hagrid with cremations and was taking in the view when he heard a shout from the castle. Fox was flying him over the lake and afforded him a perfect angle to see Neville eat absolute shit in the corridor.
Ah, man down, he's been shot. Goddamn, I haven't seen a ship go down like that since Dunkirk,
said Dumbledore.
You alright, my boy? Ah, fucking Bigbottom. That's going straight in the pensieve.
Neville got up and continued waddling away, with light moans waltzing between sniffles and toots.
Whatever is the problem? Have you been crying again, my princeling?
Moaning Myrtle swooped up and over to greet Neville.
No, I just ran super fast to get here.
Neville walked in and leaned down to make sure the stalls were empty.
Oh, did you run to see me?
Asked Myrtle with a pointy smile.
No, I'm just getting smelly from all the super fast running.
Neville disrobed.
Really got a shit.
Neville switched on the shower and jumped back to avoid the cold water. Turning around to meet the gaze of Moaning Myrtle, Neville manually spread his cheeks and aimed his movement towards the drain.
Those nerds don't know real shit when know it if it hit them in the face.
As a pile was expertly deposited atop the grates of the shower drain, Neville wrapped his hand around the back of Myrtle's neck.
The eye is a truncation of the infinite divine. An inner pupil of infinite darkness gives way to a bouquet of color bound by the limits of the soul. Compressed to fit the form of infinity in its center, it continues in drab while one dimension and restricted in the other, closing in on its loss of symmetry in the most infallible human way. Maybe that's why cartoon characters are so sexy. I wish I could disappear into the ocean of your eyes and dive for the pearl of your moisture oyster.
The two leaned in to move their tongues through each other despite the lack of corporeal contact, while Neville squished a healthy shit down the shower drain. Dumbledore stood chuckling over the pensieve.
Ah, Bigbottom, love to see him go, love to see him run away.
He was watching Neville fall over and over, editing it so it zoomed in on his ass part like the Red Sea. Harry entered the office holding his YouTube Gold Creator Award.
Parcels, sir,
exclaimed Harry.
My boy!
Dumbledore stared over the rims of his spectacle.
Who does that belong to?
This?
Harry met the gaze as Dumbledore glided towards him.
It's mine.
Dumbledore glanced between the glistening gold plaque and the smile bubbling up in the eyes of his special boy.
Ah, wonderful. A little later than I would have planned, but it seems we finally have the algorithm on our side for now.
Dumbledore placed a hand on Harry's shoulder.
Why don't you place it next to the Silver Award over there?
Yes, sir.
Harry nestled it on the YouTube mantle, caressed its gleaming bevels, and pondered.
Sir, what about this plan? Is everything okay?
Oh, dear boy, heavens! Nothing to concern yourself with. This is a wondrous occasion.
Dumbledore produced a flask from his robe and drank a hefty swig of whiskey.
There's a storm coming, Potter.
He took another swig.
Voldemort's channel is growing again. I fear the wizarding world is hungering more and more for the dark arts. We must be ready. 10 tips and tricks for draining unicorn's blood has hit 20 million views. 10 million just this year.
Dumbledore held the flask over his mouth and emptied what remained.
We must have content.
I see, sir. But why me? Why my channel?
My sweet boy, things will come into focus.
Dumbledore clasped his hands behind his back and paced.
When I find myself in the myopic shroud of the algorithm, I ask a question. What is my brand?
Harry, mouth ajar, furrowed his brow.
Ask yourself, Harry, why do you have that scar?
My mother. She saved me, sir.
Precisely. And how many views does that video have? Love, my child. Love is the blanket we wrap ourselves in before bed every night. Love is the story of a young boy born of tragedy, brave enough to fight a fucking giant snake in order to save his best friend's younger sister. Advertisers love love. Twisted little twerps like Slytherins might spend all their free time watching Voldemort break the world record for most spiders fit into a single Cruciatus curse. But that fad will come and go.
Dumbledore perched himself over the soft glow of the pensieve, casting deep shadows from the horizons of his cheekbones.
You're not alone in this fight, my boy. Help will always be here at Hogwarts for those who listen to their producers.
Dumbledore gestured to Harry.
Come, have a look at this video.
Harry watched Bigbottom's ass forcibly faceplant him into the stone bridgeway.
Never gets old,
said Dumbledore, wiping away a tear.
I don't see how this is particularly on brand with love and whatnot, sir.
Don't be a nerd. This is going on Barstool Hogwarts, Potter. Now, tell me, what does it need?
Harry thought for a moment.
Maybe when his ass claps back together and you see that shockwave, right? There, yeah. Okay, edit in a bridge demolition.
My special boy. You have your mother's eye.
After being apparated back to his parents' house to clean up his shitted pants, Neville sneaked out the back door because he was hungry. He bounced on the balls of his feet, whistling any stray thought away to the tune of Irreplaceable. He entered the corner store to find 3 Muggle teenagers hanging about in front of the crisps.
Excuse me,
said Neville in a sing-song tone, reaching for crisps on a shelf behind the teenagers.
Oi, good lord!
A teenager several inches taller than Neville nudged his friend's arm and motioned to Neville.
I'll have whatever flavor crisp made an ass like that. They must be delicious.
The tall one laughed at his own joke, and the others smiled. The clerk at the counter mumbled,
What a weird comment to make.
Neville held up a bag.
These are just salted egg yolk flavor.
He leaned coolly against the deli counter and side-eyed the group.
They're not your standard crisp flavor, but I like them well enough.
The boys approached in a line.
Well, maybe you'll give us some. Can't eat the whole bag yourself.
Sure I could.
Actually, I'm sure you could.
The tall one looked down to Neville and slapped the salted egg yolk crisps to the ground.
What's your name, cuh?
Fucking hell you do that for?
Neville picked up the bag.
If you really want to know.
Neville leaned coolly against the deli counter again.
My friends call me 7-inch Neville.
Why would they call you that?
The teen with a break in his voice asked. A moment of silence passed as Neville looks between the tall one, the short one, and the slightly rounder teen. He had no friends who called him anything of the sort and only thought it sounded cool. The clerk chimed in from across the store.
Do your guy friends really call you 7-inch Neville?
The tall one snatched the crisps from Neville.
Answer my friend here. Why would anyone call you 7-inch Neville?
Neville bolted out of the store, leaving a large crescent fogged upon the deli case glass. He immediately turned off the street into an alley and kicked a plastic bottle at the wall.
What the fuck you trying that for, Neville?
He asked himself.
Those kids were way too cool, and they took me crisps.
He sauntered off with his hands in his pockets and noticed graffiti on the bricks of the alley. The tokens of muggled, jagged script blurred together until he saw a simple message in blue bubble letters. It read, "Hurt people. Hurt people."
Yes.
Neville beheld the wall as a revelation pushed past his hunger and occupied the forefront of his momentary desires. He began chanting,
Hurt people, hurt people, hurt people, hurt people, hurt people, hurt people.
He performed a little hop and began skipping out of the alley. Walking towards him on the sidewalk, Neville noticed a man walking his Cavapoo dog. latent rage liquid inside of him attaching itself to any perceived slight. Neville was fascinated by how smooth the man's skin is.
Your dog looks like a teddy bear.
Neville said to the man. The man took out one AirPod. Sorry, what was that?
Super Pie!
The man flew back as a red bolt blasted him in the chest, and the dog leash flailed in the air. The charm leveled the man unconscious as he slumped against a building. Neville picked up the dog and waddled back into the alley.
I hope you like cuddling at night, little doggy. Let's go home.
A loud crack rang out throughout the alley, and Filch stepped out from behind the dumpster.
I might be the janitor, but your messes are getting harder to reckon with on a moral level.
Filch grabbed Neville's arm.
Drop the dog, you little monster.
Neville kissed the terrified puppy on the head as it turned to try to bite him.
Bye, doggy.
The pair apparated back to Hogwarts.
You should be more careful messing with muggles, Neville.
Filch placed a paternal hand on his shoulder.
They have just as many rights and feelings as we do. They will fight you for their dogs back. Plus, more and more of them are carrying guns around these days.
What's a gun?
Asked Neville. Filch briefly considered what war crimes Neville might be capable of, and found himself at a loss for words.
Can I have a gun?
Absolutely not. They are nothing to concern yourself with. Now off to class with you. Dumbledore is subbing for Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Simmer down, children.
Dumbledore ambled into the dark arts studio, wheeling an odd contraption. It was a heavy-set glass-paneled box atop a wheeled serving cart. The notion of a cart made for serving made Neville hungry, this close to second bells.
Professor Snape is currently off campus, doing more important work than teaching you lot Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Dumbledore pulled back, obviously a muggle contraption, from his robe and held it to the class.
I haven't felt my heart beat in my head like this since Dunkirk, and I have only Professor McGonagall to blame. Instead of Snape's lesson plan, I thought we could relax with the lights off and witness a masterclass in the dark arts on the offense.
Dumbledore bent over and glided the black muggle contraption into a similarly matted black chest that consumed its offering and produced a mechanical whirl. Lights embedded in the chest flickered red to green, and the glass panel flashed blue. Several wizards in the front row audibly gasped and cowered, wands over the edge of their desk, ready to defend.
Simmer down, young wizards. I will have no spells cast upon my VHS player. The Muggles don't make these anymore, and it's only means by which this Muggled pensieve can preserve this memory.
The glass panels switched from the electric blue to a grassy lawn. Tiny Muggles were parading around a stadium, holding dogs of all sizes. Even more Muggles were occupying the stands. A voice, disembodied, echoed through the dark arts classroom.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the 255th Annual Westminster Dog Show. I'm your host, Bob Schlossenfinster.
Neville! Psst.
Harry jostled Neville's elbow.
I need to head to Hagrid's. Can you distract old Dumby?
It depends. I'm in a sour mood today. I lost me new puppy.
Harry reached in his robe.
Sorry to hear that, Neville. Would this biscuit cheer you up?
Neville sighed and stretched his hips.
Give it here.
Thanks, mate.
Neville stood and hauled ass with surprising alacrity to the back stairwell.
No, Neville, not today. I swear to Salazar.
Boomed Dumbledore, but he was too slow to draw his wand. Neville timed his reverberation ass blast to bound him up the back staircase in 2 hops. Dumbledore fumbled to the middle of the class, looking up the catwalk with the wand raised, but Neville was already to the supply closet. The class reacted with smirks and well-rehearsed annoyance. Dumbledore shuffled up the stairs to try the doorknob, knowing it would be quite immovable. Alohomora unlocks doors by unsettling pins within locks. It is useless when the whole knob is in the iron clench of Neville's butt cheeks.
I will lock you in the dungeon with no supper for a week if you make a mess rummaging through that closet again,
yelled Dumbledore, more worried than the chore of cleaning. However, Dumbledore didn't want Neville finding any of the dangerous magical items in the Defense Against the Dark Arts supply closet. In the commotion, Harry quietly slipped away. He could hear Neville shouting from the closet,
Akio-gun! Akio-gun!
Harry knocked on Hagrid's door to find it already ajar. A smell like coal and burnt fingernails wafted from the cabin on a warm breeze.
Come in, lad. I'm just finishing something right quick.
Harry's eyes adjusted to the dim light of the wood-furnished cabin to find Hagrid slumped over a vial, sprinkling what looked to be hair into it.
My oaf's fingers never quite found a talent in potion making. Mind handing me that bit of cork on the table?
Asked Hagrid. Harry watched Hagrid cork up the faintly smoking brew and asked,
What are you brewing? It truly smells awful.
Just a wee brew for some plans with old Dumby later. That's not what I had you sneak out here for.
Hagrid untied his leather apron and threw it on the back of a chair. He said,
It's around back.
with the satisfied twinkle in his eye Harry knew to mean some devious contraption awaited him. The pair ambled through the pumpkin patch as Hagrid made small talk about this year's melon harvest. Harry didn't catch all the technical nuance of how crows can be charmed to symbiotically support worm populations, but appreciated the wandering web of Hagrid's tinkerings. They walked the path deeper into the woods, skipping the turn that led to the silk farm, and eventually found themselves at the secondary workshop.
Hagrid, what's in those crates?
Out front, under a low eave, were 2 crates covered with a tarp, which began to jostle as they approached.
There are some new critters I picked up last time I was in London. Might be ornery right now on account I've missed their breakfast, but we can say hello if you like.
Hagrid pulled back the tarp, and the 2 lithe figures scurried back from the light.
Oh, Hagrid,
Harry looked at the 2 caged individuals and met their eyes.
they're beautiful.
Well, the one on the left is a rare sort, a Czech trundleback.
Hagrid handed Harry a small satchel of white crystals.
Here, breakfast. Just sprinkle some over the top of the cage. Keep your fingers about you and don't make eye contact too long.
Harry saw the Czech's eyes go alight and playfully eat the crystals.
Isn't he a cute one? They love their ketamine. Now, be careful feeding the Aussie rugby.
With a start, the other one hissed and swiped through the bars of the cage. Luckily, Harry was quick enough not to get snagged.
Now, aren't you sour this morning?
Hagrid admonished. Hagrid pulled a plastic tablet from his pocket and threw it into the cage.
Here's your Tamagotchi. Now simmer down.
Harry was fascinated by how the elegant Aussie fiddled with the little beeping device.
Neat. What a lovely find, Hagrid,
he exclaimed. These were not the usual brutish creatures Harry was used to finding back here.
Right on, boyo. That'll be a fine pair of twinks for a while yet.
Hagrid lifted the heavy wooden latch from the barn doors to open the wood shop.
All right, now for the main show.
Neville watched Harry and Hagrid leave the hut and watched till they were out of sight behind the massive pumpkins before resuming his walk. He had figured since everyone was still in class, he should follow Harry to see what he needed to get to Hagrid's for. He rubbed deep in his ass to alleviate the itch coming on from the swelling. Dumbledore had lost his patience getting him out of the supply closet and used a fire spell to heat up the doorknob. Neville held on for longer than any ass in the wizarding world should. Neville was the only wizard that had the ass, pride, and calluses to accomplish such a feat. He was mostly disappointed he didn't find a gun, and was left kicked out of class with a gnawing desire to learn what a gun was. He sneakily entered the hut and shut the door behind him with a practiced butt nudge.
It smells interesting.
Neville followed his nose around the hut.
Just a bunch of dumb junk.
He cased gingerly under books, looking for jerky or other flat, easily concealed foods, but still couldn't locate the smell.
Accio gun.
When no gun came flying through the air, Neville noticed a peculiar vial perched upon freshly used tools and chopping blocks. He uncorked it and breathed in its vapors deeply.
Hot dog, that's the ticket.
He upended the vial and drank to completion.
That's a new flavor for the Pokedex. Can lean more into the nutmeg.
Neville looked around the room and had a realization. Without finding a gun and consuming everything edible in sight within 45 seconds of being here, he had no further plan of how to occupy himself. In his sudden spurt of boredom, he moved an apron to the floor and sat in the chair. twiddling his thumbs on the table.
Something will always come to me if I follow my nose.
He reassured himself.
The color comes back to those who sit and stare.
It was true the dim cabin lacked colors of vibrant life. Neville imagined a big turkey dinner with carrots and peas and something purple, which to his mind completed the brown, orange, green, and purple colors of permissible food. Only now he noticed there was a suspicious lack of color in the cabin. Everything looked to be hues of colors they were not. The grips of tools he knew to be red were blending into the wooden bench they rested upon.
Wait, what's happening?
Neville looked down to his thumbs and saw two white, furry paws occupying his sleeves. Hagrid hoisted a long crate onto the workbench. "Another broomstick, Hagrid?" asked Harry.
I know. Old hat for a talented young seeker such as yourself.
Hagrid lifted it from the straw bedding.
But you see, Dumbledore just bought this muggle device at auction, and I got to tinkering with it.
He nodded to a schematic on the bench.
This big carrot-looking lump is, in fact, a grenade that is launched from the tube and flies through the air using the stuff they call chemical propellant. I have fitted this broomstick to use it similarly.
"I'm not exactly following, sir," said Harry.
I've told you time and again, boy, to quit it with that sir stuff. Now use that inquisitive mind of yours. What limits your speed on that old nimbus of yours?
Quizzed Hagrid. "It's the will of the wizard and amplification compatibility of the shaft's hot string, and the nimbus is already at the competition limit. Anything faster would violate QIA regulation," replied Harry.
Right you are. But the rules stipulate anything magical above the amplification coefficient.
Corrected Hagrid.
This muggle stuff works in non-magical tandem and technically skirts the rules.
Harry's eyes beamed as the implication struck him. "Hagrid, you're a wicked mad genius, you are."
You likely have one or two games before they get around to banning it, so use your moments wisely. A flick of this button on the upper shaft will toggle propulsion, and you can only have around 30 seconds of fuel.
Hagrid wrapped up the broomstick in his crate and handed it to Harry.
Come, now let's get you back to school.
Dumbledore opened the door to Hagrid's shack.
Whoa, you need to up the ventilation here, Hagrid.
Dumbledore looked around the empty shack.
Hagrid!
All was still until a faint whimper was heard from under the table. A gorgeous Bichon Frise emerged.
Getting ready for the show early, I see, Hagrid, old chum.
Neville screamed,
Help
me! He wanted to cry, but no amount of pushing could produce a drop. He continued screaming.
We're happy today, aren't we, Hagrid?
Dumbledore produced kibble from his pocket.
Get it all out. We can't afford any mistakes today.
Neville screamed until the kibble was pushed into his jaws. The smell arrested his brain function, and he chewed on instinct. It was the best thing he ever tasted. Dumbledore scooped up the adorable dog into the carrying case slung around his shoulder.
You brewed that with enough juice to allot for extra practice, right? Of course you did. Next stop, best in show.
Hagrid said good day to Harry to find an empty shack and an empty vial of polyjuice potion. He also found a puddle of robes with a large circular hole in the buttocks and quickly burned them in the fireplace. Neville had just had the most confusing 20 minutes of his life. Dumbledore had pulled him from the crate and tied his neck to a hook, perching him on a table. He had felt unbridled rage. He wanted to paw his way through the rushing crowd of impeccably dressed and over-scented muggles. The piercing attention of his school principal, however, was oddly centering for his composure. As a flurry of hairbrushes tugged pleasantly at his coat, a constant rhythm of kibble assuaged all anxious thoughts. Dumbledore prattled on about meaningless terminology, including
stacking tight
and
trot mogging.
Neville found that if he withheld whatever stance Dumbledore's hands were guiding him towards, he would be given a treat.
You're a right greedy bastard tonight, Hagrid,
said Dumbledore.
When it's that ribbon and you can have the whole family-sized bag I've stuffed in my coat.
A tenderly woman approached and asked, "What a gorgeous young man! May I pet? After the show, of course." Dumbledore smirked and said,
Me or the pooch?
The lady smiled back as she continued on down the rows. It was the nicest thing anyone had ever said to Neville in his whole life.
This is the moment we have predestined.
Dumbledore rocked back and forth on the balls of his feet. He loosed his elbows and breathed determinedly down his long scimitar nose.
I want that ribbon. No shortcuts, only beauty, obedience, and a touch of magic.
Dumbledore tensed the thin lead around Neville's neck, not knowing he was ever so slightly choking his least favorite student. Dumbledore led him off the table, down through rows of now empty grooming stations, and through a door guarded by a man holding a clipboard.
Best of luck. Right this way.
He said to Neville and Dumbledore, and they were ushered into a dark tunnel. Neville could feel weaved plastic blades of grass between his paw pads and smelled the nip of whiskey Dumbledore sneaked from his coat pocket. The chattering of thousands of muggles filled the tunnel with an unsettling din. White lights then illuminated the mouth of the tunnel, leaving Neville's dark corner in an even louder silence. A voice boomed over the loudspeaker. The winner of the non-sporting group, Bichon Frise, number 9. The pair glided through a wreathed threshold and under blinding lights to thunderous applause. Dumbledore trotted Neville round the green in the grandest moment of his young life. Every polite clap reverberated within Neville's shriveled soul. It was as if his nightmares, or a recent herbology class, were cast in negative. A parade of smiles spun around the happy dog and added a flower to the garden of piercing scowls which comprised Neville's day-to-day experience. He trotted past other beautiful dogs and old muggles, but did not see them, for nothing could dilute the admiration he lapped up with every step. But as he rounded into the center of the arena, Dumbledore pulled his lead to the direction of a grand platform, behind which were several distinguishedly dressed judges. Neville recognized the woman who first recognized his newly found beauty, standing amongst them in her pink pantsuit. He was looking directly into her kindly eyes, and looking forward to the lavish petting she had promised. However, her gaze was cast higher, towards his headmaster. As the lap concluded, Dumbledore settled him behind a platform in line with several other dog headmaster pairs. The loudspeaker boomed again, and another dog emerged from the tunnel to similar applause. The winner of the toy group, Shih Tzu, number 23. Jealousy was acrid poured over the blossom of Neville's heart as he resolved himself to seriously maim, if not eat, the Shih Tzu that was now rounding the judge's table.
Judge Chambers is going to be inspecting first, Hagrid,
said Dumbledore to Neville.
Keep your pointing rigid. She's a real stickler, that one.
Neville had no idea what Dumbledore was talking about, but figured it was just dog stuff that he had, so far, had a natural talent for. Judge Chambers approached Neville's platform with somber aplomb.
And who do I have the honor of inspecting here?
Asked the bespectacled woman, who was watching Neville in the same way that a hawk watches a rabbit, or a Bichon Frise cross a field.
This here's Barty,
replied Dumbledore.
Please forgive his excitement. He gets a bit worked up around beautiful women.
Oh, Barty. You have excellent taste in owners.
Judge Chambers began her inspection, touching Neville's mid-back, and worked her way up to his face.
Here's a lovely example of the pedigree. You have worked magic on his coat.
You don't know half the spells I needed to conjure those curls,
Dumbledore said, smirking. She worked her bony hands over several points on Neville's dog body. As she approached his undercarriage, a flush arose in Neville's dog brain. When his sensitive puppy hairs felt a hand between his hind legs, he instinctively sat back to block any further genital inquest.
Get this bitch away from my balls!
Yelled Neville, which manifested as a loud yelp and singular bark. Judge Chambers stepped back, stunned, and all of Madison Square Garden fell silent.
What the fuck, Hagrid?
Whispered Dumbledore through a feigned smile.
Not very gentlemanly of you, Barty,
sneered Chambers, as she forcibly grabbed Neville by his back hips. She pulled up on his hindquarters, making him stand. And when Neville felt her fingers wrapping to his pink peach fuzz, he twisted around and bit her wrist, hot blood gushing past his canine, staining his immaculate white muzzle. Chambers screamed in a deafening shrill, throwing her arm in an arc and flinging Neville from the platform. Neville whelped as his rib cage impacted the ground. The adrenaline and delightful rush of bloodlust ignited a primordial anger in Neville's dog heart, leaving him panting and suddenly nauseous.
That's what you get, you daft bird lady!
Barked Neville, but the arena only heard the frenzied barking of a Bichon Frise. His stomach lurched and he salivated rabid streams of drool. Neville didn't notice that he started seeing red.
How about you fucking learn to stay away from kids' balls, you fucking weirdo?
Barked Neville.
Fuck you!
Yelled Neville in plain English. Judge Chambers fainted to the ground as the Bichon Frise spoke in the voice of an aggravated British teenager. Several audience members fainted as the Bichon Frise writhed in unnatural ways, its forearms extending and losing their hair. The largest naked ass anyone had perceived materialized like a hot air balloon birthing itself from the backside of a small dog. Neville began screaming.
No! Bark! No!
He writhed on the ground, his human senses dulled, the rich tapestry of his prior dog nose and ears.
Turn me back! Turn me back!
He began to weep and yelled his heart's discontent as he lost the body that earned him the only affection he had ever known.
Turn me back, please!
He whimpered, curled in a ball, naked on the ground, the warmth of the spotlights broadcasting his shame.
What the fuck, Neville?
Said Dumbledore, which was the only utterance Neville could hear above the sound of several children crying. Sir? Asked Harry.
My apologies, my boy.
Dumbledore retrieved his spectacles from his desk.
I didn't see you come in.
Is everything all right, sir?
Yes, of course.
Harry noticed the headmaster's eyes were fixated close on his hands, but staring well beyond them.
It's just this morning. Not much of anything happened, and I feel terribly afraid of growing old.
Exactly 3 hours later.
Alright, now I want a nice clean game. Tip your bartender and keep the medical emergency hours clear. On my mark.
Dumbledore aimed straight into the sky. He wasn't exactly sure of the trajectory, but was certain the time fused would go off.
Ready?
He fumbled with the trigger mechanism. Damn safety was different on this model.
And...
With a swoosh, the RPG soared into the sky. Modestly high above the Quidditch pitch, it exploded much smaller than any firework, but the savage shrapnel could be heard hissing above all of the students.
Begin!